The way I teach people to manifest is that you have to have desire, expectation, and imagination. If you don't have all three, it's lacking. And if you don't have expectation, which you often hear people say, don't expect too much because you're going to be let down, which is really funny to me because you're going to be let down anyway. It's not like you're not going to be bummed out if something doesn't work. But the expectation is what helps bring it in. Bring that thing in that you want. The expectation is what a lot of time is lacking. And if you don't have that, it's going to be filled with something else like fear.
Today, my guest is Alissa Cohen. Alissa has spent over 35 years connecting people to their deepest level of truth, elevating their body, mind, soul, and consciousness in order to heal their heart, awaken their senses, and truly taste the ecstasy that their life experience has to offer. An internationally recognized author, speaker, educator, artist, and healer, Alissa has pioneered the raw food industry and reached certification and mastery in a myriad of healing arts, such as polarity therapy, cranial sacral and regression therapy, relationship and tantric coaching, energy and shamanistic healing. She is an herbalist, nutritionist, homeopath, fitness trainer, yoga therapist, transformational breath facilitator, and intuitive guide. Alissa first gained an international reputation for her books and courses distributed throughout the United States, Canada, England, Australia, South Korea, and many other parts of the world. With her extraordinarily extensive background in the healing arts and her powerful intuitive gifts, Alissa connects with the hearts and minds of her students while teaching them the secret to elevating every area of their lives. Alissa is a magical medicine woman, a powerful healer, a whirling dervish of spectacular talents, and a deeply caring and generous soul. Get ready for the magic with Alissa Cohen right here on Soulgasm with Polo Tate. Alissa Cohen, welcome. What a total joy and honor it is to have you right here, right now.
Thank you. It's so great to be with you.
It's so great to be with you too. And I have to laugh when I'm reading your bio because I have not, just as an audience aside, I have never met somebody with the particular constellation of attributes who is certified in such a wide breadth of things, who is spectacular in each one of them. And I absolutely make fun of Alissa every single time for this because I have to bust out my pen and add to the list of modalities and healing mechanisms that she is not only proficient at, but internationally renowned for.
Well, I've been doing this for like 40 something years. So I keep adding to the repertoire.
Well, it looks good on you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Speaking of just all of the wide experiences that you've had, the varying experiences you've had, all the people that you've had the pleasure to not only meet, but to touch and to help, what is it that really lights you up right now? What is lighting you up?
That's a really good question. So it's kind of like what I've always taught and how I've always lived, just to be in the moment and in the flow, and whatever comes in, to embrace it. So right now it's really travel. And after having so many lifetimes of experiences at this, point in my life as I've gotten older, what really lights me up is to light other people up, really, and to bring joy to other people and to show other people how to live an authentic life and how to live in bliss and how to connect with the essence of their soul and do what they're really meant to be doing.
When you say connect to the essence of their soul and really help light other people up, allow them to find that true joy and that excitement, how do you do that? What is your process in terms of when you meet somebody for the first time or they ask to work with you? What is your
So
practice?
I do a couple different things. I do a Tuesday night healing every Tuesday evening where it's a group and it's more like of an energetic healing. It's light language. So I do a bunch of stuff like that. But when I do one-on-one counseling, it's really about finding the threads of what is holding someone back. So whether there's blockages from the inner child, adolescent, negative ego, I really go deep to untangle that. What's keeping someone stuck? What's keeping someone in anger or self-pity, and where that comes from, and untangling that. And also working with the future self, to see what it is that you want to manifest and create. But a lot of people, like, there's a lot of people doing a lot of spiritual stuff now, and it's about like manifestation and creation. But if you have those blockages and if you have those old patterns and beliefs, you really have to, I think, you really have to go in and untangle that and rewire yourself to step into the future that you want. So that's what I really help people do.
And just from having experienced your your process and your healing and your counseling, I know that what you're talking about in terms of really going in and exploring the ego. First of all, I want to get back to light language. For anybody who don't know, for any of our beautiful audience who doesn't know what light language is, let's talk about that. Let's put a pin in that for one moment,
Okay. Yeah.
And get back to that, because I think that's an integral part of just introducing another layer to healing that at which you are so proficient and tuned in. And at the same time, so when you go in and you work with a client and you're trying to find those threads that you speak of in order to disentangle the negative ego, in order to quiet the voices, or at least turn your attention and be able to tune into those sabotaging thoughts or those limited beliefs that have really contributed to somebody's pain or wounding, how did you come to find this? Because it has been my experience, the only way that somebody can guide somebody through that at such a personal level is if they've done the work themselves.
Yeah, I actually just got chills throughout my
Me
whole
too.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And not everyone asks me that, but I agree. This is all work that I did when I was lucky enough, fortunate enough to find this work when I was about 17, 18. And it was and back then nobody knew what consciousness was not the same. Consciousness was very different. Even 10 years ago, nobody knew what you were talking about when, like, I was a polarity therapist and a craniosacral therapist, and nobody even knew what that was, let alone, 38 years ago. So I just started on this journey early. When I was like 16, I realized I was like a medium and talking to dead people. But even when I was really little, I kind of knew I had a gift, and that I was kind of tapped in all different ways. And I was a super empath and I was connecting to people. I didn't know what that meant.
Wow.
But I needed to learn how to channel that. And I just happened to connect with someone who became a friend who turned me on to this work. It's the Lazarus material. A lot of people don't know what that is. He's been around forever. But and again, at that time, nobody was really doing this stuff, the channeled information, but really deep process work. And I went through it. I mean, in my 20s, I was like crying every day for 6 months and processing, family stuff and deep wounds and, past life stuff and everything. But really, not being good enough or anger issues or whatever it is, like really stuff that's not fun, that a lot of people, that's when I think it's awesome that consciousness has changed and everyone's into spirituality. But a lot of times it's kind of like airy fairy fluffy stuff that I think, not to be like judgmental of it, I think it's great people are doing all this stuff, but to really change these deep rooted programs and to really change these belief systems is not easy. And it's why a lot of people will do it or start to do it, and then it's just not fun and they stop. But Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that, because you see there is a faction of spirituality. I love your use of air quotes in that, because there's a charge around it. There's a feeling around it. Even though consciousness is rising,
Yeah.
there is sort of, there are myths out there that say that if you live a spiritual life, you shouldn't have any negative emotion.
Right.
And spiritual
Yeah.
bypass is a real thing where you're just like, no, I'm just not going to think about that.
I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to,
Right.
think about butterflies and rainbows. And I think people are going deeper now, like consciousness is changing, but that's always bugged me. Like, you shouldn't get angry. You shouldn't be mad. You shouldn't be affected by certain, that's not real. And I always say there's no negative emotions, right? Like, it's not that anger or rage is a negative emotion. Any emotion can be negative. Love can be negative if you're not expressing it and you're repressing it, right? So if you're repressing anything, that's the negative emotion. Negative emotions aren't bad. It's when they're stuffed back, when they're not allowed to be expressed, not expressed, like dumped on someone, like road rage. That's, then you dump your anger and you feel better and the other person's carrying it, right? But, when you learn how to do it, when you learn how to express that, when you learn how to go in, like I have a lot of techniques that I give people, like how to get rid of shame, which we all have. All of us. If you haven't dealt with shame, but you go into the circle of forgiveness, you have the person come near you, you actually have a bag of shame. You talk to the person, you let your higher self talk to that person. If that person doesn't talk to you, their higher self talks to you, and you express it in meditation. Then you give them back. There's all these techniques that I've learned for so many years, like thousands of them. And again, getting back to the question you asked me, like, how do I do this work? It's from experience. It's from doing all of this really heavy duty work on myself. I remember one time in my 20s, I was with a group of people who I was doing this with, like friends that had introduced me, and then the circle kind of grew, and I was young. And I remember one time driving home from Boston. I lived on the North Shore, and I was like, why am I doing this? This is not fun. I'm crying every day. I should be out drinking like a normal 20-year-old. I should be out, I almost stepped out of it a few times, but I knew that the spiritual path was the path I was supposed to walk in this lifetime. And it hasn't always been easy, because I push people's buttons too, right? Even friends, like, if somebody comes to me with a problem or complaining, it's like, okay to do that when something first comes up, but then let's find a solution. Let's process that. And not everyone wants to do that. It's not easy work.
It's not easy work. And I am so curious to know what propelled you through those doubtful moments. How did you know? Why did you know that this is your spiritual path and that you wanted this?
Oh, that's a really good question. I love your questions. Nobody else.
I love you.
I love you too.
It's true. I learned so much, and I know the audience I have rolling chills right now, by the way. They're just like cascading, because this is so important if we want to live a life that is deeper than the absurdity and the chaos that we might see around us. So what was it that how did you know? Why did you want to take this spiritual journey to the depth that you have?
Yeah, I love that question. My first response when you asked that was, I don't know. It was just something in me, the essence of who I am. But I think when I started doing this work, when I started really, again, even I read John Robbins' book, A Diet for a New America, when I was 16, went vegetarian. And I was always on this, like, that's what I got known for, is the raw food and healing people, because no one was into consciousness. Some people were, I shouldn't say no one, but it wasn't like it is now. And it was easier to change people through diet and exercise. And that is kind of how I started. And then your consciousness clears when you're, the cleaner the diet you eat, right? The clearer you are in thought. But I always kind of was on this path just naturally. So that's like the quick answer. But whenever I got off of it, like whenever I would go to the movies and go out drinking with friends, it didn't feel good. I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but like, it just didn't feel good. I thought, I would do it. I would live like the normal, I feel like I'm air quoting a lot. I would live like
Please, air quote away.
like the normal, what everyone was doing, normal 20-year-old was doing at the time, like go out to dinner, go out to drink. And it just didn't fill me up. I thought there's got to be more depth than this. There's got to be more. And when I would do this work, even though it might not be fun looking at where something came from, in my adolescence or my child, after I would feel this like wrung out, when if you're an athlete and you do a race and then you feel like wrung out and high after, it was almost like a natural high. And I would feel in my truth and connected to my soul, not like I was doing something that I could do it. It's not like I couldn't go out to eat and go to a movie or do something and it wouldn't be fun. I was with friends, but it just didn't fill me up. When I did this kind of work after, I was blown away. And I thought, man, I feel so authentic, more authentic than going out and doing something, mainstream. I just felt like I was connecting to the truth of the universe and connecting to who I truly was. And I didn't know what that really meant going forward, like where that was going to lead me, but stepping into the unknown and stepping into that space of like, wow, I can step into the unknown, jump off. And I say this because like, this is one of the meditations I do. Like I'm picturing it as I'm saying it. So when I say jump into the unknown, you walk to the edge of the cliff, you open your arms and you jump off and you're in the free fall. And in that is bliss and freedom and like expansion, like you've never known. And when I did that, I knew that I created my reality 100%, and that I could create anything. And that how fun is it to, instead of being pulled along in life and feeling like stuff is happening to you, that you could actually maneuver. I have rolling chills right now.
Me too.
That you could actually maneuver and navigate so that you could create what you wanted. And it became fun. It became like, okay, what else? Let's see what else I can create. Let's see, like, this is just fun. Like even business stuff, writing a book and opening restaurants and doing all the stuff, like it just becomes the game. Like I always say, this is the illusion. The real stuff is out there. The real stuff is in meditation. You can create whatever you want. How fun is that when you're on that trajectory? Like, let's see what else we can create. Not for money, not for power, but just for fun. Like, and as you do it, it's like, wow, yeah. When you find, the answer and you find the truth, like, how can you not share that with people?
When you're talking, I feel just sensations in my body, like awakening. It's like just little pockets of maybe stuck energy that are opening themselves, hearing you talk. And I'm wondering, when you're in that meditation, you've described it so beautifully in terms of like that post runner's high, like that post marathon, like you are like exhausted and euphoric. This is, by the way, the definition of soulgasm to me. This is what a soulgasm is, when your mind, body, spirit is so aligned and
Yes.
so aligned in your authentic truth that you cannot help but feel that ecstasy. What does it feel like in your body? I can feel it from you, and I know that anybody who's watching this can feel the energy of that. When you're truly in that space of understanding creation, what does it feel like in your body, if you can describe it to you?
I can totally describe it, because when you were talking, it just clicked. I was thinking, oh, and then it just clicked. Aliveness. If I have to say one word, aliveness. Like I want to be alive on that. I don't care how much money, for me, I'm not driven by that, like money or power or, it's aliveness. I want to feel alive every day that I'm on this planet. I don't, people ask me like, why I eat raw food and why I'm into health. It's not to live to be 100. I don't care about that. While I'm here, I want to be alive and feel every essence of my beingness every second of the day. I want to feel good. I just want to feel good and have fun. And people will say to me, well, you can't like have fun all the time or feel good all the time. Why not? I mean, I know stuff happens, of course, but that's what I'm striving towards.
So when you say you really understood and sort of it clicked in how you create your own reality. What does that mean in terms of how you do that in meditation? When you talk about creating your own reality and then watch it come to fruition. And by the way, I've witnessed you do this in business. I've witnessed you do this. I'm going to create this. And literally 48 hours after you come out of meditation, you have a whole new business. You have a whole new website and you have a whole new client list. It is phenomenal. I've honestly, there are very few individuals, I believe, on the planet who have the manifestation power that you have in terms of the quickness. And I think it has exactly what to do with what you're talking about in terms of like understanding the game of this reality. What is the process to creating in meditation, or however you would like to describe it, creating in the field and allowing it to come to fruition for you in the 3D reality, in physical reality?
Yeah, again, awesome question. I mean, there's a couple different ways to answer that. First of all, so there's a couple of different things. One is the way I teach people to manifest is that you have to have desire, expectation, and imagination. If you don't have all three, it's lacking. And if you don't have expectation, which you often hear people say, don't expect too much because you're going to be let down, which is really funny to me because you're going to be let down anyway. It's not like you're not going to be bummed out if something doesn't work. But the expectation is what helps bring it in. Bring that thing in that you want. And desire, which a lot of people do have the desire, and imagination. So, but it has to be all three. The expectation is what a lot of time is lacking. And if you don't have that, it's going to be filled with something else like fear or, whatever it is, whatever your thing is.
When you say expectation, can you give us an example of something that you want to manifest or have manifested and talk about the expectation of that so that
so it's a lot of times we say we want something but then we're like, well, I'm not gonna put all my eggs in one basket, right? Like there's even a saying for it, right? That we all have, like, I'm not gonna put all my eggs in one basket. Why not? Why? Like, it never made sense to me, right? Like, why wouldn't you expect it to happen? But you're not going to create it if you don't really expect it. If you're saying, yeah, I want this, I have the desire, imagination, and expectation, and I expect it to happen beyond a shadow of a doubt. But a lot of times we don't do that. We say that, but then it's like, okay, but if it doesn't happen, I have a backup plan. Why?
So burn the boats is what you're talking about.
Get off the dock. Because if you got the backup plan, then it's like in your mind, right? It's like, okay, I can always do this. It's not 100% expectation, right? You're like kind of waiting. And that ties into whatever when I was saying, like, I go deep with people into, into the threads. So whatever, and everyone's different. Maybe it's like not being good enough, not being, I feel I have that, that old belief that I can't make money, or I have to work hard to create money, or that I don't deserve a good relationship, or, that I'm not, whatever it is, right? And it goes back to that when you don't expect, like, well, this is the old pattern. I don't normally get, but yeah, I've got desire, imagination, and expectation. Let's put that out there. But in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I know this doesn't normally work out for me. If that's lingering, that's going to stop it. Right. So that's one thing, the desire, expectation, and imagination. And then the other thing is, there's all different ways to manifest and create, but it's like, I dream it. I tend to not like literally dream, but like lucid dreaming or a meditation. I go in and I see the whole thing.
This is where your imagination is painted in terms of creating a clear picture. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And if I can't feel it, so, it's funny. I have friends that say, wow, everything you do works out. No, it doesn't. I just don't advertise the stuff. It doesn't work out. I have died here.
Sorry, it doesn't work out? Okay. Well, I've at least seen evidence.
I wake up with new entrepreneurial dreams every other day and new but I go in and I get excited about stuff. And then, that night or the next day, it's like, no, it's gone. And my friends will also joke with me like, God, you change your mind every 2 seconds. I thought you were going to do this yesterday. Said you were going to start this new business. And now, but it's not that I change my mind. I follow the flow. And I've always been, it used to drive my family crazy, even when I was young. I'd be like, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be a world famous, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day I'd be like, nah. And it's, people thought I was flighty, and I'm not flighty. I just follow the flow. So this is something really important that I love to talk about, because I don't, and it bothered me for many years, many, many years, that that people would think my family or friends would think I'd like bounce from thing to thing. And then I thought, this isn't a bad thing. Like, we're taught that we pick a thing, we stick to it, we got to follow it through, even though it's not working. And I don't follow it through if it's not working. I follow the energy and I listen to the signs. There's signs all around us. We just don't always listen. And I do believe everything happens for a reason. Like, a truck will go by with, words on it, and I'll be like, okay, what was that? Why did I just see that? Everything has a message. It's just a lot of times behind the veil, and we don't see it, or we don't pay attention to it, right? But when we pay attention to all the whispers and the messages, like, something flies in front of me while I'm driving, some kind of bird, like that happened yesterday. I was like, I got to look up animal speak and see what, there's always messages that the universe is giving us. And that's why meditation is so important. Because when you sit in meditation and shut everything out and listen to the truth, listen to the messages, that's how I live my life. And, people will say, well, you got to be practical. Well, you got to be, that to me is practical. That's the way, following the flow is the easiest way to create.
I am utterly appreciative in terms of your presence in my life. And this is one of the huge nuggets that I have learned from you. And that is, I grew up in a household where if you say you're going to do something, you do it. Like, that's just, you do it. And you take that.
I have had many conversations about this. Yeah.
Maybe just several thousand. And
I'm like, why? Why are you doing it?
Right. And there's a point at which, keeping your word is an honorable thing. And if you don't keep your word to yourself and your soul first, then how much good are you bringing to that situation, that promise that you made, or that contract that you verbal contract that you created when you said you were going to do something, as opposed to following the energy? I'm so curious to know what allowed you to give yourself permission to change your mind.
That's a good question too. I did this at a really young age, and that I don't really know what gave me permission. I was the youngest of 5 kids. So, and, I was close with my parents and stuff, but by the time they got to me, I was very much younger. I think
they're like, we're tired.
Right.
You can do whatever the hell you want. We're really tired.
Right. But I'm grateful for that, because they were like, yeah, just don't kill yourself. Just, it's fine. Do whatever you want. And so I always had that like mentality. And I remember when I was in high school, I didn't want to finish school. And I just was like, I'm going to hairdressing school, and just for something, because I wanted to get out of like, going to college and which I just kind of always had that. When I would listen to my intuition, like I did that. I went to hairdressing school. I walked down the street on Newbury Street in Boston and got a job as like a top colorist, went to London to study with Fidel Sassoon. I just kind of followed this weird flow, and I didn't know what I was doing. Did I want to be a hairdresser? No, that lasted like a year, but it led me to London. It led me to all this wild, crazy stuff that I did. And I just, I always tell people, when people say like, how do I follow my intuition? How do I get tuned in? One trick I tell them is to get in your car and get out of the logical mind, take a deep breath, bring the energy into your heart, Get out of your head about where you're supposed to go and just follow. You know, I mean, we've all done this. We've all gotten in the car and, you know, I'm just going to take a drive and I don't know where I'm going. And we end up somewhere and all of a sudden along the side of the road or, you know, two huge windows that, oh, I was just thinking I wanted to paint some, you know, on some windows, or, you know, you find a vacuum cleaner that you needed or something, right? So, and you start following that intuition, you start trusting it. That's how, because when you start trusting your intuition, it starts to work for you more and more and more. So take a left, you take a left, take a right, you take a right. All of a sudden you see somebody standing outside who you wanted to connect with, or you were thinking about yesterday, and you anchor that in like, oh, I trusted my intuition. Okay, intuition, lead me to the next thing, lead me to the next thing. And the more you do it, and when I don't know if this is answering your question, but when I was kind of in my heyday with raw food, I was opening restaurants and I was, you know, doing all this stuff. I was buying a lot of property. I was making a lot of money, and I bought like 10 properties, and I was doing all this stuff, and it was crazy, the stuff that I was drawn to and then got messages about. I was about to buy this like $1 million property, and it was a lot of work to get it to go through. And the morning I was going to pass papers, I woke up that morning and I heard no. And I was like, oh my God. So like on paper, this is where people don't listen to their intuition. On paper, it was like, I have to do this. I was going to the lawyer's office to sign the papers. And it was a whole huge deal. But I heard no, and I thought, I can't do this, but I didn't know why. And that's the tricky thing. I didn't know why. And I thought, I don't care. I know that if I don't follow my intuition, I've done this long enough to know that I need to listen. And I called them and I didn't sign the papers. And I was even thinking to myself, like, am I crazy? I wanted this. Like on paper, everything's working out, but I didn't do it. And you don't always know why. 6 months down the road, it was about 6 months later, I found out all this bad stuff about I would have been in a lot of, like in hot water. It would have been bad.
There is this is such a pivotal point that you are making, because we all have intuition, right? We all get whispers. We all get that hair standing up on the back of our necks to be like, why don't you cross the street right now? Right. And we'll cross the street to avoid danger or whatever.
Yes.
We'll have near misses after getting that feeling of just, getting that subtle impulse to move a certain direction. And when you're talking about practicing in the car, oh, that's such good advice. Yeah. Dropping into your heart space. What does that mean to you, first of all? How do we drop from our logical mind, where we spend so much of our day from the neck up? What does it feel like? What is the technique to drop into your heart space?
Yeah. So it takes practice. First of all, it's not going to happen right away. Right. So I do this with clients, and every time I work, if I work with them a couple times a week, I always tell them, like, okay, let's get out of your head. Take a deep breath. Bring the energy into your heart. I don't care what you're thinking, because I know you're intelligent enough to figure this out. I mean, I know you can think your way out of this, but what's the feeling? Because the feelings are the truth. Because the brain is not future thinking. The brain is just going to figure things out now. The heart is going to lead you to where you want to go. And I care more about what you're thinking. What you're feeling than what you're thinking, because that's the truth. So yeah, so I just try to get in, but it's practice. This was like many, many years of me meditating and doing this work and crying, like I said, and doing deep process work on myself, and, feeling like at times like, this is not worth it. What am I doing? I'm not like living mainstream like most people. I'm not doing, but it was like the depth of feeling that I was searching for, and the depth of truth about the essence of who I am, and helping people tap into that. So it takes a long time, but, not a long time. But it takes practice, to really bring the energy into your heart and really get out of that, especially when you are extremely intelligent, such as, yourself, when you're somebody who really, who
overthinks things and analyzes every single thing from every angle. What?
It's hard. It's not an easy thing to drop into that heart space and to live like that. It's scary because it doesn't look like the right thing. It doesn't look good on paper. It's not what everyone else is doing. It's going against, mainstream.
You brought up such a beautiful point. And first of all, your heart being your true GPS, what you just said in terms of it knows, it guides you, it leads you to your truth, the truth, your truth, is brilliant. And you brought up such an amazing point in terms of like, you don't have to know why.
Yeah.
You don't have to justify why you feel the way. And for all of those of us who are new at this, trusting your intuition. We all have intuition. We all have that little voice, and we all most of us override that voice because our logical brain kicks in, and we're like, but it is good on paper. It's a sound decision. It must be, my feeling must be wrong.
Right.
And I think one thing that you had suggested in terms of bringing up the fact that it doesn't matter why is you don't have to say, well, screw this. Let's just, the whole thing is off. It can be a no for now.
Right.
It can be I'm going to hold off. You know what? Something's telling me to hold off.
It can be a no for now because maybe it's still, you don't have to like throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? It can be a no for now, but maybe there's a piece of that like, oh, that's why I needed to explore that. So I always do this thing. I don't have a lot of props. Let's see. Okay, so I have my phone, this big clip. I don't have a lot of stuff around me, but okay, let me take off a ring because I always do this with people, right? So you're going down the road, right? And you see the clip and your intuition says, man, there's something about this clip. I don't know what it is. And then your logical mind says, we don't need a clip. We have so much stuff at home. I don't need to, clutter my house. I like things neat and clean, blah, 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 blah. But your intuition is like, you keep hearing the clip. Most people ignore this. That's when you're not living by your intuition. When you listen to the clip, like, I don't know why it's this, something's telling me to pick up this clip, but I'm going to do it. And then you pick up the clip, and behind the clip was the phone. And oh my God, I didn't even see the phone. If I didn't pick up this clip, the phone would never have appeared. But once I picked up the clip, then the phone appeared. But you got to follow the flow. If I just ignored all of this, but maybe on the sidewalk next to the clip on the road was the phone, and you wouldn't have seen it if you didn't pick up the clip. And then, oh my God, in a little puddle on the side, like next to the phone or underneath hidden, was the ring. And that is something that all of a sudden rings a bell that I needed. But if I didn't pick it up and walk through the unknown and follow my intuition without having to know, because sometimes you don't know, but you follow the intuition and then it becomes clear a week, a month, a year later. But when you live by your intuition, it always flows and works out. I mean, I know my intuition is 100% on in that way. I don't always know why, but now, because I've trusted it so many times.
I heard I'm so appreciative of this train of thought and you bringing it to us, because I've heard that we're always putting our trust in something, and I believe it to be true. We are always putting our trust in something. So are you going to trust yourself, your heart, and your higher self, your intuition? Are you going to put your trust in your intuition, in yourself, or are you going to put it in someone or something else? Yeah. And when you look at it like that, from what you just described to us, there is no other path that makes as much sense. And I'm talking like sense, right. Logical sense, but also sensory right. sense. Because we feel it in our body when we're like, ooh, you were like, I heard, you hear that clip sort of chirping, being like, why am I?
Yeah. And also when you're doing like a business that, I work with people around like creating businesses and, And a lot of times you'll run up against bumps in a business, right? And like you said, you don't throw the whole business. Oh, like, oh, I just ran up against that blockage. This doesn't seem to be, it's not like, okay, trash the whole thing. It's like, wait, maybe I need to pivot. And then you brush up against another blockage. Wait, I need to pivot. You brush up against another blockage. Wait, but then it's like, okay, if that then opens up and works out, great. If it gets too hard and it's not fun and the whole thing, then like, listen to your intuition. Is this hard? It shouldn't be hard. It should be easy. I'm a big believer in, when people say, I tell this story to friends, and I think I've told this to you. My father, who passed away about 4 years ago, but he was in his late 90s, and I grew up in a deli for, he had delis for like 50, 60 years, like famous delis. And I grew up in that business. I mean, I come from a line of hard workers, and that belief. So every time I would call, my father would say, "Hi, honey, you working hard?" And I would say, "Yep." And he'd say, "Okay, here's your mother." And then after a while, I was like, why am I saying yes? I don't want to work hard. I want to have fun. I want to have money flow into me with ease, doing what I love. So, then I started to say, nope. And he'd say, "Okay, all right, here's your mother." I don't even know if he registered what I was saying, He was probably like, "What? Okay." But, be careful what you put out there, because it doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy and joyful, and we can do it elegantly. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It's what you choose.
I'm so curious, the intersection point of what role, just in your opinion, first impression, does worthiness play in success?
A huge role. Huge, and I know that's your thing, is being worthy, right? And yeah, it's huge. It's like what I talked about, the thread when I first start working with people. It's if you don't feel good enough, and if you feel, less than, or you have all these beliefs about, whether it's like your child or adolescent or wherever it's coming from, that's a good point to start at, because worthiness, it's, going to affect how you go out into the world and create and manifest and what you deserve.
What you deserve. I'm blown away when I see people giving themselves permission to do what lights them up, to follow what lights them up. And knowing what you know now, especially in terms of incorporating your deservability and really like understanding that you are worthy of creating the life that you want. Like, you exemplify that ever since you were like a young child. And I think actually probably children know that better than we do, in terms of understanding that they can do and have
totally.
anything that they want. Like, right? Yeah. With that agility that is usually reserved for a child and then conditioned out of us. But for somebody that hasn't found what truly lights them up, what advice would you give them in terms of where to start?
How to start feeling worthy and what lights them up.
How to find what lights them up. What does that mean? How to find,
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. That's, well, a couple of things. I think one is like, that's the work I do, is by asking the questions, and it doesn't have to be that complicated about, like I said, working with the child and the adolescent, the negative ego, like clearing out the stuff that doesn't light you up, clearing out the stuff that doesn't make you happy. So what, on a daily basis, are you going to a job every day that doesn't make you happy? It's going to be hard to be happy when you're spending 8 hours a day or more doing what you don't want to do, right? Are you in a relationship that is not making you happy? It's going to be hard to be happy when you're with someone, spending most of your time with someone who's not making you happy. So I think that's a good place to start, is clearing out what doesn't make you happy. And then just asking yourself the question in every day, there's this technique that I have where, like, I tell people, everything you do, even if it's silly, even if it's like picking up your phone, picking up a clip, asking yourself, and, it gets a little monotonous after a while, but does this feel good? Did that make me happy picking up that clip? Did this make me happy to pick up my phone? Which a lot of times I say, no, it doesn't. Put it on the table and step away, right? We're on our phones constantly. But why am I on it? Why is it glued to my hand? Why do I keep looking at it? Why do I keep put it down? I'm saying it doesn't make me feel good. I have to, check messages. I work off my phone. Okay. It doesn't mean I have to take it when I go for a bike ride. Look, I took it this morning. I had it on my handlebars the whole time. And I'm like, why did I leave my phone on the ground? What do I think I'm missing for the next half an hour? Right? Like, get rid of the stuff that doesn't make you feel good. We don't even notice because we're so used to doing it. We're conditioned, and then what does light me up? Does it feel good to have my phone with me? Yeah, because I can listen to music. Does it feel good to eat that banana ice cream that I made last night? Yeah, that felt really good. Did it feel good to go get coconuts off the tree instead of, sitting down and writing the stuff I was supposed to write yesterday? Yeah, that felt good. And, some people say, like, even I started seeing someone who is very, different from, he's very open, but he's very different than me. And he's like, it's interesting because this is how I've always led my life, right? So even like, are you going to work? Like, do you ever work? Do you ever sit down and write? Yeah, when I'm in the mood. And I'm blessed to have created my life. But I've worked really hard, but I've created my life where I wanted to work hard at that point in my life. Now, if I don't feel like working, I don't make myself sit down and do it. I go and get coconuts off the tree. I go swimming. I go to the beach. Then after a couple of days like that, I am lit up to, oh my God, I cannot wait to write. I am rejuvenated. I am feeling creative. I follow the flow. So, back to your question, how do you help people tap into what lights them up? Follow the flow and do what lights you up in the moment. Because if you say, well, I'm going to do what lights me up, but first I got to do this, first I got to go to work, then I got to clean the house, and I really should go grocery shopping. And I know to other people, like, that's why I brought up my boyfriend now, because to other people, it seems like irresponsible. I know he doesn't really get, okay, yeah, you really don't, he joked with me the other day and told me I'm like a 6-year-old. And I was like, yeah, I kind of do live my life. Like, I get more done, and I've been very successful in my life, and I get more done than most people do, it like before noon, I'm like, it's part of my personality. But when I don't feel like working, I don't force myself to work. I get lit up in any way I can so that light brings me into my work, and I can channel that light into what I'm doing. When I force myself to do stuff when I don't want to, like going over to get water across the street at the grocery store, or, sitting down to have to work, you know what I mean? It doesn't work. You got to follow the flow. And
it sounds like in that state that you're talking about, when you are truly lit up, it is the most productive state in which we can work. Or it's not even work. It's whatever we devote our attention to and our focus while we're in that state is the most highly productive thing that we can do. And I think so often we forget this.
Yeah.
Right? We forget that that's true productivity.
Yep.
And what you're saying in terms of, well, first I have to go to the store, and first I have to work out, I have to do all these things. What it sounds like is you are back to practicing your intuition. It sounds like when we do that, we are practicing prioritizing away from our soul.
Right.
We're prioritizing everything above our soul.
Totally. Because it's all going to get done. It's all going to get done unless I have a deadline or unless I have an interview to do. Like with you today, I made sure I was here. But, well, and I love you, and I love you, and I could talk for hours. So
I know, for the love of God.
Like you and I sitting on the couch. But yeah, when I do what lights me up, then the other things, I get excited for work. I get it. But after you do the grocery shopping and do stuff that you don't like and I have to do that. That's responsible. That's what people do. That's what I'm supposed to do. Then you're burnt out and you can't even do the creative stuff. So do what you love first. It's like eating the,
frosting first.
Right. I was thinking, thinking of raw food.
Dessert first. Yeah.
You're right. Eating the dessert first. And then, no, you're supposed to eat your meal. Why? Why?
This is what I love about you, because that is the most honest, raw, genuine why I have ever
heard in my life. And you've said that to me when I've been like, well, but we should eat a well-rounded dinner first. And you're like, why? And it's coming from a place of such deep authenticity that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And then everything that we've been conditioned to, because 4 is 3 squares a day. Like,
right. Like, who said? And who cares? And, it's one thing if I was eating pizza and ice cream every day, but I'm not. I'm eating good. I eat healthier than most people. So I'm getting my nutrition. I'm doing my green drinks. I'm doing my chlorella. I'm doing, I'm eating fruits and vegetables. That's pretty much. If I want to have, dessert first, who cares? Like,
it highlights.
I just thought of something funny. Can I tell you?
Of course. Are you kidding?
So again, I'm in a new relationship. And the other day I was trying to get out. I think we were going to go for a bike ride and then go to the beach. And he was like, well, I got to put some laundry. And I was like, all right. And then I was annoyed because I'm waiting for the laundry, And I know I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. We can do a whole interview about that sometimes, about you and I, you being the 3. Yeah. So he dumps all the laundry on the bed and proceeds to fold it. And I'm like, oh no, we're not doing this. We're going to the And, I saw my stuff. I realized my child was like, get me out, But I said to him, and he has not let me forget it. He jokes with me every day about it because I was like, when you're 95 and on your deathbed, you're not going to be like, thank God I folded that laundry. And I have not. Every day. He's really funny. And every day he's like, well, when you're 95 and on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking I'm doing the dishes or doing lights. Like, I'll do them. But, and there's balance. You know what I mean? There's balance in that. You got to
I have not known what balance is my entire life.
Well, I haven't either. But,
but I do subscribe to harmony, and I understand
harmony. And it's funny because you're an athlete. You've been successful in so many things, and it's not really about balance because when I've created businesses, when I've created, when I opened an art gallery, when I did, anything I did, when I'm lit up, there's no balance. I don't want to be in balance. I get up at 2 a.m, because I can't sleep because I'm so excited. And that's the creative flow. That's the creative energy. That's the beautiful thing. So balance, yeah, I'll sleep when I have nothing to do. And I'll go to the beach when I have nothing to do. And then 6 months from now, a year from now, I'll be creating this huge project where I won't sleep and I'll be going 1,000 miles an hour, but it won't feel like work because it's passion, and it's my light inside me. And, everyone's different. Everyone works differently. But when you try to squelch that and not go with the natural rhythm of, somebody else may be more balanced every day. They need to work for an hour or 2. I'm all or nothing. But that's my rhythm. And when you start to listen to your rhythm and tap into your rhythm of who you are, because we're all different. Not everyone's going to do it like me or you, but when you listen to that, that's when you're in the flow, in the moment. That's when you're, figuring out, back to your question, what lights you up and how you follow that and how you get in that flow state.
I think it's so, so important to highlight exactly what you just said in terms of first of all, everybody's different. So when you are talking about asking yourself this question, wait, does this feel good? Or does this feel familiar?
Right.
Does this feel good? Or does this feel like this is just what you do? Are those your beliefs? Or are they somebody else's that you accepted when you were little because people, adults were bigger and taking care of you and responsible for your life or death? Is this my belief or not? Asking yourself those questions. Oh, it's so valuable.
I do that when I'm working with clients. I ask them a lot of questions and I get intuitive hits. So then I follow it. It can be behind something. But I often say, why? And they're like, what do you mean why? That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. I'm like, who said? And then if it's your mother or your second grade teacher, then we need to process that. But if it's not you, then, you know, it's like when people ask me, well, what do you think? I have a young girl who calls me every once in a while. She'll text me and say, can we do a quick session? She'll ask me stuff, and she knows now that I'm not, she'll say, well, I know, but what do you think? And I'll say, well, what do you think? How does it feel? Let's go into this. And do you feel like that's the right? Well, yeah, but what do you think? What hit are you getting? And I'll say, I'm not going to tell you, because it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter. Even if I see it, if I saw something dangerous happening, I've said to her, I would tell you if I thought there was danger. But if you're asking me, should you do this business or not? Should you, be friends with this person or not? It's not up to me. It's not, I'm not going to tell you the answers. And so many people look for someone to tell them what to do, because we've always had a parent, right? An older sibling, a third grade teacher. And when you start thinking for yourself, when you start making it's kind of scary, because what if you fail? What if you don't make the right decision? But that's part of it. That's part of the learning. When you don't make the right decision and, I kind of felt that. Why didn't I listen to it? Okay, let me try this again. Let me trust myself. And it works. The more you keep doing it, then you can tap in.
And it's so interesting how we abdicate the authority in our lives so easily, because we've been conditioned to know that when a doctor puts on a white coat, automatically he knows more or she knows more than we do. And I
don't get me down that road.
Well, and at the same time, we could just as easily make, a poor decision on the advice of somebody else, right. But we can, in this culture, in this society, blame them if it goes wrong. And if you take responsibility for your decisions and you are empowered to make your own decisions, well, then there's no one to blame. However, with that responsibility comes total freedom. And you're allowed to
freedom. And I love that you just said that. Comes total freedom, and it's the only way you can change it. Because if you don't take responsibility for it, then you can't change it. If it was the doctor's mistake, or if it was the friend's, mistake, or somebody said something to you and, well, that wasn't my decision, I listened to them, or this happened to me, then if you don't take responsibility for it, you can't change the situation. You can't change that pattern and that flow. I'm not going to create that again. Because if you don't think you created it at the beginning, then how are you going to change it? How are you going to have the power to change it? So, yeah.
It is so scary when we think of assuming responsibility for our lives. And that's why I love you introducing the practice of tiny little things throughout your day. Does this feel good?
Yeah.
Does this feel good?
Right.
Not right now. Okay, I'm going to put it aside.
Yeah.
What is my highest excitement right now? What feels good to do right now? Have a cup of tea and sit down. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. These micro decisions, and practicing taking micro responsibility for your decisions each day takes the overwhelming fear of I'm in charge of my life out of it. When you practice, you can start trusting your intuition. But I got to tell you, you have ultimate responsibility. We all have ultimate responsibility for our lives.
Yeah. Right.
We have it already. So
I believe you create your reality 100%. That it's a weird concept for people to get. I think people are getting that now, and some people get it, but they're like, well, yeah, 80% of the time. Well, how do you create 80% of the time and not, even when bad things happen, people will say, well, what, I didn't create that. I didn't create, getting, hit by a car on a bike or something. Yeah. But if you you did, in my opinion, you did. And that's not to blame. That's not to blame at all. It's wow, there was some lesson in that. When I broke my shoulder last year, I did a number, you came out to help me, right? I broke my shoulder, messed up my whole arm. And it was the slip. I slipped on something and went flying up in the air. And I was the first, I was laying on my back and I was like, oh my God, what's happening here? why did I just create this before I even got up off the floor? It's just, I'm programmed to think like that. I didn't say like, how did God do this to me? Or how did the universe strike me down? Or why did this happen? I knew 100%. And then I had to go in and process it. Not that moment, although I kind of did, but I mean, yeah, but because really I was like, okay, this is fascinating. I knew I was doing something. I started this business like 6 weeks and I, made a ton of money, but I was going like a lunatic. I was having heart palpitations and I was like, I'll slow down when I'm, in a little bit when I'm ready. And the universe was like, bam. Okay. My higher self, whatever it was, like you're saying it, but you're not doing it. You're doing something for the money. It's not in alignment. You feel like you're going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I was revved up. I was talking 1,000 miles a minute. I didn't feel good. My nerve damage and my foot started hurting and I wasn't stopping because I was like, I'm good at it. I can do it, and I knew it doesn't matter if I'm good at it. I was off the path. And I know I created that because I was about to travel the following week and get even more hooked into this thing I was doing. And it was like, you're not listening. I hurt my foot. I had, I believe your higher self gives you little taps, right? I had heart palpitations. I didn't, I was feeling like too revved up, but I wasn't listening. And it's like, and when I got my concussion, I say my concussion because I, believe I created that in 2017. I smashed a bar over my head at the gym and was on the couch for 8 months, shifted my life totally. And I was on my couch every day. Like, why did I create this? What's the message here?
I think you bring up such a scary point to a lot of people because to take responsibility for the things that happen in our life, even the accidents, even the tragedy, even the traumas, I want to highlight what you said in terms of it's not a blame game. It's not to blame yourself or to punish yourself or to feel guilt yourself. It's to remember that power being external is a myth. It's to remember that we are empowered. We are omnipotent, in fact, especially in our lives. And so when you talk about, oh my God, you're lying on the floor with a broken shoulder, and I can attest to this because you FaceTimed me very shortly after. And you're like, why did I create this? What you're doing quicker than most people. Most of us look at this in the hindsight, or as we're sitting in the quiet, silent rubble of our life having imploded. Like most of us are like, what is this about? Right. Why did I create this? And what you're doing is you're immediately switching your focus to
get lesson. And to get into alignment.
To get back into
alignment. Dude, I was so out of alignment. What just happened? And I'm not saying, and I want to add something because it's not like, so when you're out of alignment, you'll get hit over the head or hit. I just am really stubborn and I can push through. You and I have this in common. We're very driven. And it's not, as much as I've done this work, I mean, we all have our stuff. And I just see it quicker and I know what my stuff is, but doesn't mean I don't do it. And I'm super stubborn. And when I am on a mission, I can get very driven and goal oriented, even though I'm like talking about being in the flow and being, and I mean, I've gotten much better at that. So it was shocking last year because I was like, I didn't think I'd do this again. Why did it? And I don't, I kept saying to the universe, okay, I don't need a big hit like this to get the message. Please I don't need to be struck down. I don't want to keep creating it, but I'm such an experiential learner. And again, I thought, wow, I got the message. My foot was killing me. That should have been the first message. Because when I get stressed, that's what happens. Then I remember walking with a friend. I was like, blah, 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 blah. And my heart, she goes, what's wrong with you? You're so manic. I was talking about the stuff I was doing. And that should have been a message. And I did it. And I know I'm someone who can't be off the path. I'm asking to be on the path and to see everything. And it's like, I know I created that to slow down because I wasn't slowing down. But when I look back, it's like, man, I got the messages. It's like the guy, that story about the guy, I'm sure you've heard this, the guy he crawls to the roof, there's a flood, and he asks God, like, please save me, please send me, a message, please come and rescue me, like, please help me. And the flood's getting bigger and bigger, and a boat comes by, and the guy goes, hey, you want to get in the boat? And he said, no, I asked God to come and save me and give me a message. And the next boat comes by, and he says, come on, dude, jump in the boat and, come with me. And he's like, no, I know I'm going to be saved by God. And, happens a third time, finally goes up to the pearly gates and says, I asked for you to come and save me. Why didn't you save me? And he said, I sent you 3 boats. Like, you're not paying attention to the messages. It's that type of, it reminds me of, I don't think I told that story exactly right, but that's, I sent you 3 people, like, you're not listening to them. It's like he wanted this huge, the sky to open and the angels to come down. Sometimes it's these subtle messages. And when we're not listening, when we're not paying attention to, like we were talking about, the truck going by, we're not seeing behind the veil, we're not listening to the messages, we miss it. And then we need something big or we create something big happening.
And when you were talking about listening to the messages, being able to see them, hear them, listening to your intuition, when you talk about being out of alignment, I just want to offer this and tell me if this is what you mean by alignment. When your body, your mind, and your spirit, your intuition, your higher self, inner self are in alignment, you are, I was going to say you're in balance, but that's not it. It's actual alignment where you don't feel like there is a person you or a persona that you present to the world, and then there's your inner authentic true self. And then I often talk about there's this chasm in between. It's all the stuff we feel guilty over, we're ignoring, we're denying, we are angry over but haven't processed, all that unprocessed negative emotion, all those things. If you can process that and close the gap between your inner and outer self, you can live your life at the speed of life, like in alignment.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about in terms of alignment?
It is. And it's, it's connected. Like when I feel out of alignment, I feel it immediately. I just don't feel good. I don't feel happy. I don't feel joy. And again, people will say, well, I can't feel that all the time. But even when I feel like at peace and chill, when I don't feel authentic, and, we all have different, like even around different friends, we have, our personality can change a little, or, when we're at work, but I feel like that becomes less and less, and we integrate more and more. And even now, like when I do my 4-day trainings, when I used to do my raw food trainings, and people would come for 4 or 5 days, and the biggest thing I heard was, wow, you're so real. And it's just, I've learned to be more authentic when you don't feel like you have to be someone you're not, or put on these airs, or, speak a different way, you start to, like, the chasm starts to get smaller and smaller, right? You start to become authentic and whole. And this is who I am. And not everyone's going to like me. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea, right? But that's when I feel good, because I noticed when I didn't do that, when I was trying to please other people or put on, speak differently or pretend I was something I'm not, it didn't feel good. You can feel it in your body. When you're real and authentic, when you're sitting at home with your friends, when you're, lying in the sunroom, reading a book, when you're out, to dinner with, your best friend, and you're just authentically you. That is really who you are and what you want to put out into the world. When you're not that, you want to carry that over. When you're not that, people can feel it. People can tell that you're not being real, and we all have this outer persona, especially if you're like an actress, or if you're, out in the world doing something. But my goal, has been to strive to be authentically me, and to know that not everyone's going to love it, but it feels good to me.
And ultimately, you will attract, and you'll find your tribe, and you'll find, those people that you do have forge deep bonds with. And the payoff is that much greater, because is real. It is to the core of who you are. And if your goal is to feel more and to experience more and to really live on a deeper level than what is offered sometimes, authenticity is the price for that. And it's also the exponential payoff.
Yeah. And I always say, who's going to be able to, your real tribe isn't going to be able to find you if you're cloaked in a different persona.
Ooh, that is so huge. I just pictured a dating app. And yes, like truly, though, I mean, if you want real connection, then you've got to be real.
Right. Which is hard for people, right? Because for a lot of different reasons, but because we're taught, to put on an act or whatever. And because if we don't know who our true self is and we're not comfortable, we don't love our true self, then it's hard to put it out into the world.
Oh, it is one of the greatest challenges and one of the greatest experiences and rewards that you could ever do is really, truly to be able to remember who you truly are. Yeah. And you, my darling, dear friend, have reminded me of the truth of who I am on many occasions. And I will never forget this. It's going to make me cry before we get into our heart seat question round. I just want you to know nobody has ever offered. You said to me when we were, I feel like we've known each other for lifetimes and lifetimes. So early on after we met, you said, if you ever need someone to remind you who you truly are, you pick up the phone and you call me. Yeah. And I know, and I have, and you have. And it has gotten me through some extremely dark and emotional times. And for that, I will be forever and eternally thankful to you. I love you.
I love you too.
Okay, so I
always say circle the wagons. And people say, what does that mean? I say, there's a lot of I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I know, but there's usually 4 or 5 people that know you and love you no matter what, right? I'm going to cry. Circle the wagons when you need it, when you go through those dark times or you need reminding of who you are so that you can pick up the phone and say, remind me of who I am when I'm out in the world. And, not everyone can see the true me. And I'm having a hard time connecting to it. We all need people around us who do that for us.
I will be that for you anytime. I love you unconditionally and dearly.
I love you too.
Maybe I want to end our time. We always end with a heart seat round. Instead of a hot seat round, it's a heart seat round. So whatever comes up, first impression, give us your answer. If you wouldn't mind, whatever bubbles up.
All right, let me get into my heart. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what would you say is your core code? Your top 3 core personal values?
Freedom, joy, and bliss.
Ooh, I love it. Freedom, joy, and bliss. What daily routines do you have that are non-negotiable?
Exercise. For sure. Whether it's walking or going to the gym or something. Meditation. And, eating good. But that's always, yeah, that's it. When I don't eat good, I don't feel good. I'm so sensitive. I've always been. And when I don't work out, whatever it is, riding bikes or something. Awesome. And meditation. Yeah. And after that,
meditation.
Yeah.
Good food. Ooh, I love it. What brings you back to center? If you feel out of alignment, what brings you back to center?
Like I just said, circling the way. When I really feel out, I call someone that a close friend, and I say, remind me who I am, because I'm getting fuzzy right now. I'm going down this path. Whatever's happening. Meditation, closing my eyes. It doesn't have to be an hour-long meditation. Closing my eyes, shutting everything out, and asking the questions like we were just talking about before. Asking the questions. What do I need? What does my child need right now? What does my adolescent need? What do I need? And how do I feel? How do I really feel? Because when you close your eyes, it blocks out, we have so much outer stimulus. We can sit and say, what do I need? And then, we get distracted by the fan, the birds chirping outside, somebody in the background. But closing your eyes and going inward, that's really what brings me back.
Just asking the question, what do I need? I don't think we ask that of ourselves. I mean, it takes a special reminder for that. So what do you cherish most from your careers? What have you cherished most in your rise to this point?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What do I cherish most? Okay, hold on. What do I cherish most? What is coming up is just the experiences of the people that I've met and the lives that I've hopefully impacted.
Ooh.
And like putting out into the world, like when I was doing raw food, there wasn't much information out there. David Wolf was just coming out, and it was me and Giuliano, and just putting out there like how people can shift to a different paradigm just for, from eating raw and living food and a higher vibration, putting that into your body, and, from the healing work, and just kind of like making an impact on the world and people in it. That's all I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah. Our final question.
Yeah.
What or who gave you your last soulgasm? That feeling of just ecstatic joy. First impression. What gave you your last soulgasm?
That's an interesting question. That kind of got me off a little.
Mazel tov. And it can be anything. It can be anything.
Are you talking in general? Just like what lit me up? The last thing that
what gave your last like rolling chills, like woo moment of like, like whether it be today, something micro that happened today. I'll give you an example of one of mine. I had a random conversation with a person on the side of the street I didn't know. And for some reason in that moment, we tuned into one another so much so that it felt like I was talking to a dear friend. Those glimpses that we get into people's soul. And it reminded me of the oneness that exists.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if it was like you meant like a big thing, like a project that I created or something. But
it doesn't have to be. It can be anything.
Honestly, it happens daily. Not maybe daily to me, but like you just said when you talk. So I was walking and I connected to this man who his head is always down, and he has a little tiny dog, and he walks around here all the time. And I stopped and said, "Oh, look, your dog's so cute. Can I pat him?" And then he started talking to me, and he ended up telling me he was a singer. I mean, he really like couldn't really look up. I don't know if something was wrong with his neck or head. And he was an older man, and he started singing to me. And he started singing The Girl with the Big Hair with the Big Heart. And, and I felt like I connected. I mean, not everyone, I'm sure, stops and talks to him. And then he was telling me all this stuff. He's a fascinating guy, brilliant guy. And we just had this whole conversation. I walked away thinking, you never know how, like I'm getting emotional talking about it. You never know who people are, right? You can pass people every day on the street. And if they're not, dressed eccentrically or, grabs your attention, or they're not like loud, but, it could be the quietness of, a bird singing, or somebody saying something, or this person you meet, or something hidden. Like when you really dive into it, and, explore it, there's so much there. Like with this person, I walked away thinking, wow, how grateful I was to connect with this being and this soul at that moment in time. Just like it happens to me every day. And that's why, and it's not like I'm perfect with living in the moment. That has been my biggest lesson. my husband died, 12, almost 13 years ago. And after that, I was like, okay, I talk about living in the moment. I talk about being present, but I've run myself ragged with, restaurants and businesses. And as much as I love doing it, it's like, I really got to be in the moment. I got to like learn to be. That's why I teach it. It's been my biggest lesson, because you never know like when we're not going to be able to do that anymore, but also you never know, like in the crevices of life and, the roads we take, what we're going to find when we're really present.
So often it is something catastrophic to our lives, or what we perceive as catastrophic, like the death of our husband or the death of a loved one or the loss of some kind, that brings us back to really ask those fundamental questions. And you have helped me live in the moment and more presently. And I so appreciate your journey to live from moment to moment as presently and openly and available as possible, because you've changed my life. And I know that you've changed the lives of every single person that you've touched. So thank you. Thank you for wanting to talk about this. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with or tell the audience before we sign off?
I think we covered a lot of stuff. Yeah, this was awesome. Again, you and I could talk for hours. So
I know. We will circle back.
Talk about every time we're together. So
I know, because like you, I'm like, there is so much more to explore in this earth experience than just what we see at face value so often. So thank you for having the courage to go deeper with everything that you say and do, because it allows us all to learn that there is another level to experience and feel and be and do and have. So thank you. How about this? I offer this. I suggest, or I ask you this. May we do maybe another episode and talk about light language, and maybe have you do light languge?
Definitely. Yeah. Cool. Absolutely. That'd be so much fun. Yeah.
Yes. Let's do that. Okay, cool. It's a deal.
For sure.
All right. Thank you, Miss Alissa Cohen. You are absolutely incredible. I love you dearly.
I love you too, honey.
Thank you.
Thank you.